This is Colin O'Keefe for LXBN TV, and today we are discussing the much talked about White House Privacy Report, formerly titled Consumer Data Privacy in a Networked World, a Framework for Protecting Privacy and Promoting Innovation in the Global Digital Economy. My guest is Colin Zick, co-chair of the Security and Privacy Practice at Foley Hoag, and author on the firm's blog Security, Privacy, and the Law. Starting off, Colin, it's my understanding that there's 4 pillars under this framework. Can you explain what these are?
Right. There are four different elements that are points of emphasis within the White House document. First of all, they lay out a Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights, and this is not anything really new from them, but they're re-emphasizing that. Then they're pointing to what they call a multi-stakeholder process to specify how these rights would apply. More of a voluntary, cooperative process by industry and government. They're looking at to have effective enforcement as the third element of this. And then finally, a commitment to increase interoperability of the privacy frameworks with international partners. In other words, this is saying this message to the EU, we want to work with you and have one framework. Mm-hmm. So those are the 4 elements.
I see. Yeah, I mean, it's been very important for. I know it was stressed throughout this for this framework to be compatible and for this framework to eventually evolve into one kind of global privacy framework, or at least one with the EU. And then second, moving on, the most talked about that I've seen is obviously this Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. I think it's not necessarily something new, but it's something people have wanted to see. Can you run us through the basics of this Privacy Bill of Rights?
Sure. And again, this has sub-elements to it, but there's 7 key points within the Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. First is individual control, that there's this concept that consumers should have the right to control over their own personal data and how it's used. Second is transparency, so that, of course, as a consumer you can understand how it is that the data is being used, that is explanations that are written in English that are easily defined, easily accessible as you go on certain websites. Third is that there's respect for context and that you have, as a consumer, a right to understand the context in which your data is going to be disclosed, and if those contexts change, that you would get some sort of notice and chance to opt out. Fourth is security. I think this is self-evident, but you have they would say in this policy you have a right to secure handling of your personal data. The fifth is what they call access and accuracy, that you have a right to access the data and a right to essentially fix it if it's wrong, in much the same way that you might have take issue with a credit report and you can have a process whereby you can fix that. Same thing we're talking about here for personal data. The 6th item is focused collection, that there's a right to limits on the personal data that can be collected. And then finally, accountability, that there is some manner of recourse that you would have back against the company collecting your information. If some of these other issues were not dealt with as they should have been, you've got some way to get back other than hopping on an endless series of phone trees that lead nowhere.
Yeah. And lastly, what's next with this? This is basically just a framework that's laid out, but where do we go from here? The report obviously recommends legislation, but it's my understanding that, we may say the impact of this Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights before any legislation on the subject. How does that work?
Well, and I think it's a slow process. We first saw this concept of the Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights come out from the Obama White House about 2 years ago. And nothing has really happened in that regard. Overall, too, this concept of privacy bills of rights have been around a long time, and the legislation hasn't gone anywhere in Congress. We now find ourselves in an election year, which makes it all the harder in order to get anything passed in Congress. That said, this seems to be one of the issues upon which Democrats and Republicans can agree. They may agree for different reasons. It may be some civil liberties related reasons. It may be some consumer protection related reasons. But they seem to overlap in the middle with the notion that there should be some sort of protections for consumer information online. How that all plays itself out in Congress is still yet to be seen. But I think we have the best chance that we've ever had right now for legislation to come out of this Congress. I think obviously it would have to happen before they recess for the summer. After that, we're in full election mode, and it's very unlikely anything would happen. So for folks who are interested in this, this is really the time over the next 2 or 3 months to pay close attention and see how the political process plays out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. It all depends with these things. Even though there's a public cry for it, even though Democrats and Republicans can agree on it, we'll see how quickly things move through. You just never know with these types of things, especially in an election year, as you mentioned. Once again, that was Colin Zick of Foley Hoag and Security, Privacy, and the Law. For more on the White House Privacy Report and the Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights, which is, of course, part of that, be sure to check out Security, Privacy, and the Law, and, of course, LXBN.lexblog.com, where we have a ton of discussion on it, and I will, outside of this video, link to a page that has all the posts on this subject. So be sure to check that out, and, of course, Foley Hoag's blog there. Thanks for your time on this, Colin. It went great. Thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.